and warm. It is the Michigan basketball postgame here on the Maize and Blue Review. I'm Dennis Fithian, joined by Jim Scarcelli, and we don't have great news to report. It is a final up in East Lansing, 83-67. It goes to MSU. Scar, kick this one off. What are your thoughts on this game?
Man, just a tale of two halves. Boy, I mean, the first half was just great basketball from both teams, coaches and players, and, trying to take advantage of each other's weaknesses on defense. And I thought it was going to come down to the wire. And then, the second half, I was telling you earlier, when I used to coach, when we went on the road, sometimes I wouldn't even bring my team in the locker room. I would just use that extra time and just shoot on the other end of the floor. Because getting shots in front of a crowd on that end of a floor, the more shots you get, the better. It's just amazing how we were just so out of sync on that end. But it's frustrating because I thought it was going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, well, when you watch the first half, there were a lot of things to like. Michigan they certainly weren't looking or settling for 3-point shots. I mean, their idea was to get the ball to Dickinson and also drive to the lane. And I think Michigan State had a similar idea. Pound it down low and, see if they can drive the lane as well. And it was good basketball. And, Michigan had a 6-point lead at one point. I mean, they look really good in the first half. Everything to like. A little bit of a dip there close to halftime where State is able to flip it a little bit and get the lead. But coming out in the second half, Musa Diabate showed so much good energy, and there's so many things to like about him, to start nitpicking his game a little bit. Man, I like him when he's facing the basket and he's attacking. Some of the other shots that he, sends up there, I know when you work hard, you accept some of that, but a little bit, I don't know how many 3-pointers he should be shooting. I don't know how many fadeaways he should be shooting. Everything should be going to the basket. And then, he's boundless energy, and you like that. And you give him a couple because he's working hard. But, everyone really, when they came out in the second half, State turned it up. State, whatever the game speed was being played at in the first half, State started cranking it up towards halftime, and they came out in the second half, man, they were on full blast, and Michigan couldn't answer, didn't have the answer for their intensity or their shot making.
Yeah. Christie, for them, that's a 5-star kid. That kid's a legitimate 5-star player. I mean, he kept them in the game in the first half, but I was interested to see how Michigan State was going to defend Michigan. And they did not double Hunter. Did not double Hunter. And that was one of the biggest factors in that game. And Bingham, that kid has been there 4 years. And they've done a great job with him in the weight room. And his ability to defend Hunter was good. And marble they put on Hunter. Hunter was okay in the first half. Second half, they defended him. I thought we had a good scheme with Brooks and Hunter in the first half. We did some things there. Some other things I saw that frustrated me was, there was a couple times they call a foul on Diabate for overplaying on the low block, and then we do the same damn thing. They're getting all them steals on when Hunter's trying to get position on the low block, and they never called it once on Bingham. It just bugged me there. But I think our press is something that's pretty good. We didn't create turnovers today, but it slows them down. We came close to getting some turnovers. I give Michigan State credit, Denny. They had a great scheme offensively to exploit. I think their whole game plan was to exploit Hunter Dickinson on defense. They wanted to bring him away from the basket, try to get a mismatch, and then try to get him a guard on him so they can go through him, go around him, or try to post up the small guy or their big guy on the switch, on our low guy on that switch on the low block. And I think they did a great job of exploiting our defense and primarily Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah, I thought one of the big factors in the game, you mentioned those the entry passes that were going into Hunter Dickinson. Michigan State was sitting on those. They started jumping those, and whether they were deflecting them or what you were talking about, maybe hanging on, or you didn't like how the whistle was blown there. But there were too many where the ball was being thrown in there, and State was ready for it, and Michigan turned it over. That was a huge factor in their scoring drought. I mean, Michigan's game plan, it should be go to Hunter Dickinson every time, and if they're going to single him, well, let him go down there and Hunter wasn't able to, go the entire game. He was pretty good in the first half, and he was pretty good in the second part of the second half, but that first 10 minutes, he wasn't all that hot, and he wasn't getting any help either. I mean, you can't have that kind of scoring drought like the long period that they had, and and hope to stay with a good team on the road. So trying to figure out how to get easier baskets for this team is job one for Juwan Howard and company, because after Hunter, like, I don't know, who do you want to give the ball to? Like, Caleb Houston, he dropped a couple in here and there, and, he's played all right during their 3-game winning streak, but, they need him to be their second option after Dickinson. And, they don't really have anybody else that they can give the ball to and say, okay, go ahead and give us some points. Diabate tried, and, we saw what was going on there. And, everybody else, man, they got to be set up, and, they got to run things to get them shots. And, that's hard to do. They don't really have anybody that you can give the ball to. You mentioned Max Christie. They gave the ball to him a few times. He's, posting up on the baseline, turning around on guys, taking guys off the dribble, taking them all the way to the lane. That's big time to be able to have somebody that can create their own shot. Michigan doesn't have that.
Yeah, a lot of their their 3-point shots though was from good ball. Michigan State's 3-point shooting was on good ball movement also. I mean, some of those guys could take it to the hole. Brown took our guy to the hole one time, but they were able to make their shots when they did move the ball and get the mismatch or get a guy open. And we just, we needed the kind of shooting we had at Nebraska. We needed the kind of shooting we had at Indiana, and we just didn't get it. And
Michigan State's the number one team in the Big Ten in guarding the three, and they're a good defensive team. So that was going to be a closeout. Michigan wasn't going to get any real wide open looks, and I think you saw that. You start looking at some of these numbers here. Let's see if I can look at some of these for Michigan and how they did. You had Dickinson with 14 at the half. And then Michigan they got nothing from the bench in the first half. Dickinson ends up with 25, and you see from the bench, you got 1 3 from Bufkin. Terrence Williams got a bucket and 1 point from Frankie Collins. That's it. 6 points off the bench. Not a whole lot there. Brandon Johns, his final game heading back home. He's from East Lansing, and he served up an air ball right off the bat. Didn't get anything from him. Just, they need some offense. They need some offense, Scar, and they weren't able to.
Benny, I tell you though, I look at it a little differently. I'm seeing, okay, great. Hunter Dickinson had 25 points, but how many points did his in Michigan State exploit him defensively? I mean, you just have to be honest and say, because I really think their whole game plan was let's exploit him, let's bring him away from the basket, and let's try to find a way to exploit him. And they just did a great job of it. But you're right. Michigan State, I talked about getting back on defense. It really only hurt us one time. I talked about rebounding. I thought we did a decent job rebounding. But and that's the third thing about Michigan, about Tom Izzo for the last 20 years, they play great defense. And even though we missed 3-point shots, they did have closeouts they weren't just wide open, set your feet. We had to rush it a little bit. Jones had 1 blocked. He takes a long time to shoot the ball, but you're right. They play good defense. Even though you get a 3, you can't set your feet. You've got to take it and get it off.
Yeah, and Malik Hall, comes off the bench for State, and he's 2 of 3 from downtown. I mean, that was pretty good, and getting 15 points from the bench. Bingham didn't bring anything really offensively. He just had the 4 points that he had. It was, Christie and Hauser getting it done for Michigan State. I don't know. You had the 3-game winning streak. People were feeling pretty good, but, you had to validate some things by, showing some fight. And, man, in the first half, they really did that. And you thought, okay, you know what? There's no shame losing on the road to the one of the better teams in the conference. I mean, that's likely going to be a loss, but when you play like they did in the second half, it looked like, the majority of like when they struggled before that 3-game winning streak. They just don't really have the offense and the firepower, to be able to beat good teams. And maybe they can play themselves onto the bubble. Maybe in February they can go out. They've got a lot of games jammed in there, and maybe they can find some signature wins and put themselves in the mix. I mean, that would be nice to see. But when there wasn't a whole lot of fight, in the first 10 minutes of the second half, and I think that's disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know, Denny, if it was lack of effort. I mean, I guess that's what you're getting at.
You know what? Lack of fight, lack of firepower. I think it's kind of apparent what they have. They just don't have the firepower to be able to compete with the better teams. They don't have the offense. They got one guy, Scar. They've got Hunter Dickinson. He can get you some offense. Who else are you going to go? Who's their second best scorer? I mean,
I know. And Brooks was a he was pretty much a non-factor. They did a good job. They're not going to give him any time to breathe at the 3-point line. And I've got one note under Brooks, bricks. That's what I got. He did get a lot of shots, and he just didn't have any success today.
Well, you can't have, if you're counting on Eli Brooks to be your second scorer, you're going to get, that's not him. He's a guy that's got to play off of others and then, be a third or fourth scorer when, some of the other guys, and you can pitch it over to him, he can come up with something. But if you're looking at him to be your primary guard scorer, you're going to be in trouble. And Michigan is looking for that. But you know what, if they could beat their, the teams at home and maybe find, a couple victories on the road here, they got a chance to play in the tournament, but encouraging first half, discouraging second half, for the team. So
I'll tell you, Denny, if I'm Tom Izzo, the two best players from Michigan State today, in my opinion, I think was Christie and Bingham. Bingham may only score 4 points, but he was a huge factor in their defensive, everything they did on defense. He was blocking other people's shots other than Hunter, and he defended Hunter for the most part really well. And Michigan State's strength coach gets a whole lot of credit because that kid has, we've watched him develop since he was a freshman, the skinny beanpole kid. And Hunter pushed him around last year. He didn't push him around this year.
No, I would go with Malik Hall for what he brought offensively. I mean, he really, in that second half when they made their push, he hit the shots and he got in a groove, and that was offense for him. And that that's the one thing in contrast that that Michigan's looking for. So I mean, that's where I would put this game at is Michigan's 3-game winning streak is snapped, so they're now 10-8 on the year and 4-4 in the conference. Meanwhile, Michigan State 16-4. They're back atop of the Big Ten standings at 7-2. You got a final thought on this game here, Scar?
I just a couple notes on some players. Houston, I don't know how much of a factor he was. He had some looks. A lot of times he tries to drive and he gets run out of bounds, and then he has to force it. He's done that a few times. Williams got some time in there. You got to find your man on defense. We gave him an easy fast break. You got to identify the extra guy, and that happened one time with him. I like playing Buffkin. I'd like to see him take more time from a guy like Williams or Johns because I think Buffkin there's more upside. There's more offense there. He can go to the hole. He can finish at the hole. I thought Jones was okay. He had a steal in there. He takes a little long time to shoot, to shoot the ball when he does get an open look. And Collins had a steal in there. But, Denny, you got to make shots. State made shots. We didn't. I could see us beating them by 15 if we get to make up that game at home, too. I mean, they're not a great team. We just got to make shots. And we got to do a better job of protecting Hunter when they pull him out at the 3-point line. We've got to. People are going to just keep exploiting that. And Tom Izzo did a great job of exploiting that. I think that was a huge factor in that game.
Yeah, I'm not as optimistic as you if they replayed this one at home. The thing that's apparent with this team, again, is they just don't have the answers offensively. I mean, you can go out there and play it a million times. And, if you're counting on Moussa Diabate to be your second scorer and, Caleb Houston was a non-factor. I mean, they crowded him. He got a couple points in the second half, but you need him to, be a volume shooter, and he needs to really crank it up. That's what you saw in this 3-game winning streak. didn't see any of that today. And, they just got to ride Hunter, and they got to play off of him. And Hunter needed to do it for 40 minutes, and he wasn't able to do that with that first 10 minutes of the second half. So, can they play a complete game where play the entire game like they did in the first 17 minutes of the first half? I mean, that's going to be the challenge for this team, obviously, when they go on the road, for sure. And maybe Christie, I'm sorry, I said that Caleb Houston can get back and play like he did these last three games, moving forward. They should get the win coming up next against Nebraska. All right, hey, let's a couple big things that we wanted to get to. One is the news has come down here just in the last 15 minutes, is that Tom Brady, I see Adam Schefter is reporting it. Everybody seems to be now as well, but Schefter from ESPN saying that Tom Brady, after 22 years, is retiring. He was hinting around after the season. It kind of looked like it was heading that way, but 22 years for TB12. Scar, what do you think?
Hey man, he's a Michigan guy that all Michigan guys are cheering for. He's always said the right things, always talks about team. I look at things, I think most coaches, people that coach high school, middle school kids, we look at athletes differently sometimes than other people. And the reason I look at a guy that does the right thing, takes responsibility when he loses, gives credit to his teammate, gives credit to his coaches, just a respectful guy, the way they conduct themselves as an athlete, that makes our job easier as coaches. Because when a kid sees, a guy on Sunday, disrespect or talk junk or, disrespect the opponent or not accept responsibility, we then have to correct all that stuff as coaches. Tom Brady is one of many guys, like Barry Sanders. They make our job easier. They're respectful, but he's a great player. He never forgot where he came from. He was, always came back to Michigan, and he knows he's a Michigan guy and talks about his Michigan experience. And, he had a great career, just a winner, man. He's not going to win no dang running race, but just you look at that position as a smart guy, accurate passer, competitive leader, man. There's not coincidence that some guys go to two different teams and win. So I'm happy for him. Great Michigan man. Hopefully we get to hear from him as an analyst. He's a guy I'd love to see in a box talk and analyze a football game. I'd love to hear a guy like him.
Yeah, I don't know what his plans are. I know he likes the his TB12 brand, and he's into health food and working out, that kind of stuff. But we'll see where he goes from here. 7 Super Bowls though, but a late round draft pick, 6th round draft pick, and to win all those Super Bowls like he did, from a guy that was taken out at Michigan, and they put the backup in because they didn't think he had the arm strength, and that followed him into the draft to see him win all those Super Bowls and be on top and be called the greatest. And it really was the cherry on top, him going to Tampa last year and being able to do it without Belichick's. And hell, he almost did it against I'm sitting here last week and that game was over. Then they go into overtime and he has the ball. We're talking about Tom Brady still doing it and going out there. So yeah, great career. And he's the best. So and that he went to Michigan, that is pretty awesome. So congratulations to Tom. That's the one thing, he looks like, he looked like he was better this year than he was, than 10 years ago. Some of the release and speed and moving around, he looked as good as he ever did. So it looked like he could play, but some of those guys, they hang on 1 year, watch Peyton Manning with a noodle arm, at the end. And, it's good, so he sort of does go out on top.
Yeah. Danny, I tell you, the athletes today are so much smarter when it comes to diet and training and exercise. And, it's not it's not Art Donovan eating sausage and salami and hot dogs before the game, and and Alex Karras hanging out at the Lindell AC. It's a totally different mentality, man. This guy's 40, or Bobby Lane throwing up in the huddle over at Tiger Stadium. You heard the stories. I'm an old retired phys ed teacher, man, coach, and I thought I knew a lot about the body, and I've read a lot of Tom Brady's stuff, and he's got some good stuff. I'm a big water drinker now. I drink a ton of water in the morning. I got that from him, and just a lot of little things on diet and some of the exercises he does. I have incorporated some of it, but there's the longevity. 44 years old, man. That's just that's lifestyle training. Fitness. So a lot of good stuff from Tom Brady out there.
There you go. And we'll have some stories from the Lindell AC. We'll have to swap some of those one day. How about before we go, I know you wanted to look back to Mike McDonald. It was official that he is going to Baltimore. And did you have a word on where you think the Wolverines will go to find his replacement?
If I was a guy that could talk to Jim Harbaugh, I would say, listen, Bo Schembechler had Jim Young, ran the 3-4 defense. When Jim Young left, went to Purdue, Gary Moeller ran the 3-4. And when Gary Moeller left, went to Illinois, Bill McCartney ran our 3-4. And when McCartney left and Moeller came back, we ran our 3-4. And we were just good at what we did. The coach changed, but the system never changed. And then when Moeller got out, Lloyd Carr went in and ran the 3-4. My thing is this. I think I've looked at that staff. Hilo is a young guy. Clinksdale's been around. I would try to do everything in my power to stay with those two guys and run the same system we've done. Try to be creative. But there is a foundation defensively, what we've done this past year, that I really, really like. And I think if I was counseling or had a chance to throw something at Jim, I would say stay in-house and let Clinksdale and maybe Hilo run our defense.
All right, the words of wisdom from Jim Scarcelli. All right, Scar, Michigan does it again on Tuesday. They'll bring Nebraska in. Today's game, only a 4-point margin deficit at the half, 39-35, but 83-67. Michigan loses it by 16. Scar, thanks for your time. We'll talk with you coming up maybe Tuesday.
Okay, go blue.
There he is, Jim Scarcelli. Thanks for